Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. In my top tips video, I talked about how essential it is to properly adjust the gibs on your lathe. In my experience, they tend to be very loose from the factory and will compromise rigidity due to a lot of slop. Something like that. Now obviously, the tighter the gibs, the more rigid the cross-slide and compound will be, but the more force you apply, the more friction there will be between these two surfaces, and too much will result in these slides actually seizing up. Properly adjusting them can actually turn out to be a pretty difficult balancing act. So that brings us to this video. Let me disassemble the top slide first. As you can see, on these two surfaces that need to slide past each other, the surface finish is actually quite poor. You can see it showing up on a dial test indicator how poor the surface finish actually is. All these machine marks from the factory will increase the coefficient of friction, meaning we can't actually tighten these gibs as much as we would want to, meaning we have to have the gibs a lot more loose, and as a result, we lose a fair amount of rigidity to actually allow these two surfaces to slide past each other. So the best thing that we can do is to try and remove some of these machining marks. We'll start off by trying to fix the surface finish of the wedges. I've glued a piece of abrasive paper to a flat surface. I've used a piece of metal, but glass or granite works the best. I've started with 180 grit to remove the worst scratches, making sure to apply even pressure along the wedge. You'll want to sand the faces that are going to have direct contact with sliding surfaces. When you are satisfied with the surface finish, we can change the grit for a finer finish. Here I used 180 grit, then 320, 400 and then 600. In all, this probably took about 60 minutes per wedge and I was very happy with the results. Next we can turn our attention to the slides themselves. I'll be using Mike Taglieri's method as seen on minilathe.com, and I've been very impressed with the results using this method. The cross slide is first removed and the hand wheel and lead screw are removed to allow the slide to move freely. An abrasive paste is lightly applied on the slide. This can be any type of metal polishing compound, but a low grit is best used to remove the machine marks, followed by a higher grit to then polish it. The slide is put back on the carriage and the gib is tightened, applying pressure, but it should allow the cross slide to move freely. It's moved backwards and forwards across the entire length of the cross slide to allow the grit to remove the machining marks. After about 5 to 6 minutes, I reapply the compound, and I do this about 5 to 6 times when the big machining marks have been sanded away, and then I switch to the higher grit compound. These are the results that I got after about an hour. Most of the heavy machining marks have been removed. There certainly are a few small marks that I could get out with more work. However, any improvements that I get from here on will be very small and incremental. Most of the work has been done and we will feel a huge improvement by getting rid of the large machine marks. With that done, we can then reattach the lead screw, oil the slide and reattach the cross slide. We can then do the same process with the top slider. Before reattaching the top slide, I will use the test indicator to show the improvement in surface finish. It certainly isn't perfect, but it is so much better than the surface finish that we had beforehand. With the new surface finish, the gibs can be tightened up even tighter than before and yet still freely move. This allows for a much more rigid setup, and when cutting tapers, the surface finish is greatly improved. I'll finish off by saying this is by no means a quick modification. This took easily 3 or 4 hours of work, but in the long run, this will certainly improve the quality of parts and increase the rigidity of the lathe. I think it's certainly worth it, though be aware of the time that it does take. And with that, thank you very much for watching.